She vanished without a trace. 10 years later, a letter arrived. Imagine waking up one morning to find that someone you love has simply vanished, as if they never existed at all. No goodbye, no explanation, no trace left behind. Now imagine waiting 10 years for answers, 10 years of sleepless nights and unanswered questions, only to receive a single letter that changes everything you thought you knew. This is the story of Sarah Chen, a 28-year-old teacher from Portland, Oregon, who disappeared on an ordinary Tuesday morning in March 2013, and the mysterious letter that arrived exactly 1 decade later, reopening wounds that had never fully healed and revealing a truth that no one could have predicted. What I'm about to share with you is one of the most haunting missing persons cases in recent memory, a case that challenges everything we think we know about the people closest to us and the secrets they might be hiding. Sarah Chen was, by all accounts, living an enviable life. She taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary School, where she was beloved by students and parents alike. Her colleagues described her as energetic, dedicated, and unfailingly cheerful, the kind of teacher who stayed late to decorate her classroom and spent her own money on supplies for students who couldn't afford them. She lived in a modest apartment in the Pearl District with her boyfriend of 4 years, Michael Torres, a software engineer at a local tech startup. They had been talking about marriage, about buying a house together, about starting a family. Her parents, immigrants from Taiwan who had built a successful restaurant business in Portland, were incredibly proud of their daughter. She had a close circle of friends, a regular yoga practice, and a life that seemed stable, happy, and completely normal. There were no red flags, no warning signs, nothing that would suggest she was planning to disappear or that she was in any kind of danger. This is what makes her vanishing so profoundly disturbing and inexplicable. On the morning of March 19, 2013, Sarah followed her usual routine. She woke up at 6 in the morning, made coffee, and kissed Michael goodbye before he left for an early meeting. She was planning to leave for school around 7:30, as she did every weekday. Michael left the apartment at 6:45, and that was the last time anyone who knew Sarah saw her alive or spoke to her with certainty. When she didn't show up for school that morning, her principal tried calling her cell phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. This was completely out of character for Sarah, who had never missed a day of work without calling in advance. By noon, concerned colleagues contacted Michael, who rushed home from work to find the apartment exactly as he had left it that morning. Sarah's purse was on the kitchen counter, her phone was plugged in beside her bed, her car was in its assigned parking spot, and her keys were hanging on the hook by the door. Her wallet, containing her driver's license, credit cards, and about $60 in cash, was inside her purse. Nothing was missing except Sarah herself. Michael immediately called the police, but because Sarah was an adult with no signs of foul play, they initially treated it as a voluntary missing person case. However, as the hours turned into days, it became clear that something was terribly wrong. Sarah had not accessed her bank accounts, had not used her credit cards, had not contacted anyone in her life. Her phone records showed no unusual calls or messages in the days leading up to her disappearance. Her computer search history revealed nothing suspicious, just routine searches for lesson plans, recipes, and yoga classes. Security cameras in her apartment building showed her leaving the building at 7:20 that morning, wearing jeans, a blue sweater, and carrying a canvas tote bag. She walked out the front entrance, turned left onto the street, and then simply vanished. Cameras at nearby businesses and traffic cameras in the area showed no further trace of her. It was as if she had stepped out of her building and into thin air. The investigation that followed was extensive and exhaustive. Portland Police Bureau assigned multiple detectives to the case, treating it as a potential abduction. They interviewed everyone in Sarah's life, from family members to co-workers to casual acquaintances. They searched her apartment, her parents' home, her classroom, her car. They reviewed hours of security footage from the surrounding neighborhood. They brought in bloodhounds to track her scent, which led from the apartment building down 2 blocks before stopping abruptly at a busy intersection, suggesting she had gotten into a vehicle there. But whose vehicle? And willingly or by force? There were no witnesses who remembered seeing anything unusual that morning. No one reported seeing Sarah after she left her building. No one saw a struggle, heard a scream, or noticed anything out of the ordinary. It was a Tuesday morning in a busy urban neighborhood, yet somehow Sarah had vanished completely unobserved. Detectives naturally looked closely at Michael Torres, as statistics show that intimate partners are often involved in disappearances of women. Michael was devastated and cooperative, submitting to multiple interviews, taking a polygraph test which he passed, and allowing police to search all his belongings and digital records. His alibi was solid. He was on security camera footage entering his office building and was seen by multiple co-workers in meetings throughout that morning. Phone records confirmed his location. There was no evidence of relationship problems, no history of domestic violence, no financial troubles that might provide motive. Friends and family uniformly described their relationship as loving and stable. Sarah's parents, David and May Chen, were equally cooperative and equally devastated. They opened their lives completely to investigators, desperate for any information about their daughter. The investigation expanded outward, looking at sex offenders in the area, unsolved assaults, anyone who might have targeted Sarah. They found nothing. As weeks turned into months, the case garnered significant media attention. Sarah's face appeared on news broadcasts, in newspapers, on missing person websites and social media. Her family held press conferences, pleading for information, offering a reward that eventually grew to $100,000 for information leading to Sarah's whereabouts. The community rallied, organizing search parties that combed through parks, wooded areas, and abandoned buildings. Volunteers distributed flyers throughout Portland and surrounding areas. Tips poured in by the hundreds, each one investigated, each one leading nowhere. There were reported sightings in Seattle, in San Francisco, in cities across the country, but none ever panned out. Sarah had no history of mental illness, no reason to run away, no secret life that investigators could uncover. Her bank accounts remained untouched. Her social media accounts went silent. It was as if she had ceased to exist the moment she walked out of her apartment building that morning. The psychological toll on Sarah's loved ones was immeasurable. Michael Torres fell into a deep depression, unable to work, unable to function. He moved out of the apartment they had shared because he couldn't bear the memories. He attended therapy and support groups for families of missing persons, trying to find a way to live with the uncertainty, the not knowing. Sarah's parents aged visibly, the stress and grief etching new lines into their faces. They kept her childhood bedroom exactly as she had left it, maintained a missing person website, and never stopped searching. Her friends struggled with survivor's guilt and a pervasive sense of fear that if this could happen to Sarah, it could happen to anyone. The students in her third-grade class made cards and drawings for her, hoping she would come home. The community installed a memorial bench in a park she used to visit, engraved with her name and the words, "Never forgotten." But as the first year passed, then the second, then the fifth, hope began to fade. Not hope that she would be found, but hope that she would be found alive. The case eventually went cold. Detectives continued to follow up on leads as they came in, but with no new evidence, there was little they could do. Sarah's case was featured on several true crime television programs, each rehashing the same baffling details, each offering speculation, but no answers. True crime bloggers and amateur internet detectives proposed theories ranging from the plausible to the absurd. Some believed she had been the victim of a random abduction by a serial predator who had never been caught. Others speculated she had witnessed a crime and been silenced. Some suggested human trafficking, though there was no evidence to support this. A smaller contingent proposed she had somehow chosen to disappear, that she had a secret reason to start a new life, though this seemed completely inconsistent with everything known about her character and circumstances. The truth was that no one knew anything, and as painful as it was to admit, it seemed likely that no one ever would. Michael Torres eventually moved away from Portland, unable to heal in the city where he had lost Sarah. He relocated to Denver, started a new job, and tried to build a new life, though friends said he was never quite the same. Sarah's parents continued running their restaurant but became more withdrawn, their grief a constant presence. The 10th anniversary of Sarah's disappearance approached, and the local news ran retrospective pieces about the case, interviewing detectives who admitted they still had no idea what had happened. The story was featured once again on social media, generating a new wave of attention from people too young to remember the original case. Everyone agreed it was a tragedy, a mystery that would probably never be solved, a cautionary tale about how someone could simply vanish in modern America despite cameras and cell phones and all our technology. The case seemed destined to remain forever open, forever unsolved. A question mark that would haunt everyone who had known and loved Sarah Chen. Then, on March 19, 2023, exactly 10 years to the day after Sarah's disappearance, her parents received a letter. It arrived in their mailbox at home, a plain white envelope with no return address, postmarked from Seattle, Washington. Inside was a single handwritten page, and the moment Mei Chen began reading it, she collapsed to her knees in shock. The letter was from Sarah. After 10 years of silence, 10 years of not knowing if their daughter was alive or dead, they finally had proof she was alive. But what the letter contained was not the joyful reunion they had fantasized about for a decade. Instead, it was a confession, an explanation, and a plea that would shatter everything they thought they knew about their daughter and force them to confront an impossible choice between justice and love. The letter, which was later verified by forensic document examiners to be authentically in Sarah's handwriting, was brief but devastating. Sarah began by telling her parents that she was alive and safe, but that she could never come home and could never contact them again after this one communication. She wrote that she loved them, that she thought about them every day, and that leaving them was the hardest thing she had ever done, but that she had no choice. Then came the revelation that changed everything. Sarah explained that on the morning of March 19, 2013, something had happened that forced her to disappear immediately and permanently. She wrote that she had witnessed something she was never supposed to see, that she had evidence of something that powerful people could not allow to come to light, and that her only option for survival was to vanish completely with the help of someone she trusted. She couldn't provide details, she wrote, because doing so would put her parents in danger and would make this letter evidence that could be traced back to her. Sarah explained that the person she had been, the teacher in Portland, the daughter they knew, no longer existed except in memory. She had a new name, a new life, a new identity in a place she could never reveal. She asked her parents not to try to find her because any attempt to locate her would only put her in danger. She begged them to find a way to accept that she was alive but gone, that this was the only way she could stay safe. She told them to tell Michael that she had loved him and that she was sorry. She ended the letter by saying that writing to them broke her heart, but that she needed them to know she hadn't been murdered, that they could stop wondering and perhaps find some measure of peace in knowing she was alive, even if they could never see her again. She signed it simply, "Your daughter, Sarah," and there was a phone number at the bottom, with instructions to call it once if they received the letter safely, and that someone would answer but would not speak, would just confirm receipt, and then the number would be disconnected forever. When David Chen called the number from the letter, it rang twice. Then someone picked up, stayed on the line in silence for 5 seconds, then hung up. When he tried to call back immediately, the number was already disconnected. The Chens sat in their living room, holding the letter, crying and trying to process what they had just learned. Their daughter was alive. After 10 years of grief and uncertainty, they knew she was alive. But she was also gone forever, by her own choice because of circumstances she couldn't even explain to them. Was this relief? Was this closure? Or was this a new kind of torture, knowing she was out there somewhere, but might as well be dead for all the contact they could have with her? They struggled with what to do with the letter, Should they give it to the police? Should they honor Sarah's request for secrecy? If they reported it, would they be putting their daughter in danger? But if they didn't report it, were they obstructing justice or hiding evidence of a crime? After agonizing over the decision, the Chens decided they had to contact the authorities. They called the Portland Police Bureau, and detectives who had worked Sarah's original case came to their home. When the detectives read the letter, they were stunned. They immediately began trying to trace the letter's origin, the Seattle postmark, the paper and ink used, any DNA or fingerprints. The paper was common printer paper available anywhere. The ink was from a standard ballpoint pen. There were no fingerprints except those of Sarah's parents. The Seattle postmark told them only that it had been mailed from somewhere in that metropolitan area, but Seattle has nearly 4 million people in its greater area. It was essentially untraceable. Handwriting experts confirmed with high confidence that Sarah had written the letter. The brief phone call had been placed from a burner phone purchased with cash in Tacoma, used once, and destroyed. The technology existed to potentially have tracked the call in real time, but by the time authorities knew about it, it was far too late. Sarah, or whoever was helping her, had been extremely careful to avoid leaving any trail that could be followed. The letter raised far more questions than it answered. What had Sarah witnessed? Who was she running from? How had she managed to disappear so completely and create a new identity? These things don't happen easily in modern America, where every aspect of our lives leaves digital traces. You need a social security number to work legally, an identity to rent an apartment, documentation to open a bank account. Creating a new identity from scratch requires either sophisticated criminal connections or help from government agencies involved in witness protection. The letter implied she had help from someone she trusted. But who? Not Michael, who had been genuinely devastated and had been cleared by investigators. Not her parents, who knew nothing. Not her close friends, all of whom had been interviewed extensively. Who in Sarah's life had the capability and willingness to help her disappear? And what could she possibly have witnessed that was so dangerous that the only solution was to vanish forever? Portland in 2013 wasn't some lawless frontier. What kind of crime or conspiracy could be so serious that a witness would need to fake their death and adopt a new identity? Detectives reopened the case with renewed energy, but they were working with almost nothing. They went back through everything from March 2013, looking for any incident Sarah might have witnessed. They investigated unsolved crimes from that period, looking for any connection to Sarah or her movements. They looked into organized crime, drug trafficking, corruption cases, anything that might explain what she had seen. They re-interviewed everyone in her life with new questions about who might have had the resources to help her disappear. They found nothing conclusive. The case became even more baffling than it had been when Sarah had simply vanished. Now they knew she had left voluntarily, but they still didn't know why, and without that information, there was little they could do. The letter itself, while proof of life, wasn't evidence of a crime they could investigate. Sarah was an adult who had chosen to leave, and unless they could prove she was being coerced or was fleeing from a crime, there was no legal basis to launch a nationwide manhunt for someone who didn't want to be found. The media seized on the story once again. "Vanished teacher alive after 10 years," read the headlines. Television news programs featured the story prominently, and it went viral on social media. Everyone had theories. Some believed Sarah had stumbled upon a murder, and the killer was powerful enough that law enforcement couldn't or wouldn't protect her, so she had to rely on unofficial help. Others speculated she had witnessed police corruption or government misconduct and had been helped to disappear by whistleblowers or activists. Some suggested she might have seen something related to organized crime or drug cartels. A few proposed she was involved in something illegal herself and had fled to avoid prosecution, though this seemed inconsistent with her character and the content of the letter. Conspiracy theorists had a field day, suggesting everything from witness protection gone unofficial to secret government programs. True crime podcasters dedicated multiple episodes to analyzing every word of the letter, every detail of the case, trying to deduce what Sarah might have seen and where she might be now. For Sarah's family and friends, the letter brought a complicated mix of emotions. There was relief in knowing she was alive, but also renewed grief in knowing they would never see her again. There was frustration at not understanding why this had happened. There was anger that someone or something had stolen their daughter, their girlfriend, their friend from them. Michael Torres, when contacted by police in Denver, was overwhelmed by the news. He had spent 10 years mourning Sarah, had finally begun to heal and move forward with his life, and now discovered she was alive but had chosen to leave him without a word. He understood intellectually that she must have had no choice, but emotionally it was devastating in a whole new way. He released a statement through police saying that he was grateful Sarah was alive, that he hoped she was safe and happy, and that he had never stopped loving her. But friends said he was destroyed all over again by the revelation, having to reprocess grief he thought he had worked through. The letter also raised troubling questions about justice and morality. If Sarah had witnessed a serious crime, didn't she have an obligation to report it? By fleeing instead, was she allowing criminals to remain free, potentially to harm others? Or was she the victim, forced into impossible circumstances by a system that couldn't or wouldn't protect her? If someone had helped her disappear, was that person a criminal who had obstructed justice or a hero who had saved her life? These weren't abstract philosophical questions, but real dilemmas that authorities had to grapple with. Some victims' rights advocates argued that Sarah's story, if true, revealed serious problems with witness protection and the criminal justice system's ability to protect people who come forward with information about powerful criminals. Others argued that Sarah's actions, while understandable, had caused immense suffering to her family and had potentially allowed dangerous people to escape accountability for their crimes. As weeks and months passed after the letter arrived, no further communication came from Sarah. The phone number was dead, the letter had no return address, and there was no way to reach her. The Chens were left in a kind of limbo, knowing their daughter was alive but unable to talk to her, see her, or be part of her life in any way. They found some comfort in knowing she hadn't been murdered or didn't die in some accident where her body was never found, but the grief was still profound. They had lost their daughter just as completely as if she had died, but now they had to live with the knowledge that she was out there somewhere, living a life they knew nothing about, and that she had made the choice to cut them out of that life forever. It was a unique kind of torment, and grief counselors they spoke with said this ambiguous loss was in some ways harder to process than death because there was no finality, no funeral, no clear end point to the grieving process. The case remains open today, though there's little active investigation happening. Portland police maintain that if Sarah or anyone with information about what she witnessed wants to come forward, they will do everything possible to ensure protection and safety. Federal authorities have been briefed on the case in case it involves crimes that fall under federal jurisdiction, but without more information, there's nowhere for the investigation to go. Sarah's letter is kept in the case file, a haunting piece of evidence that solved one mystery, her fate, while deepening another, the reason for her disappearance. The bench in the park with her name on it remains, though now it has a small plaque added by her parents that says, "Alive somewhere, loved everywhere." Her parents still run their restaurant, but have aged significantly, the weight of their situation visible in their faces and posture. They give occasional interviews, hoping that somehow Sarah will see them and know they love her and that they understand she did what she had to do. What makes Sarah Chen's case so haunting is not just the mystery of what she witnessed, but the profound questions it raises about the choices we face when caught between survival and morality, between protecting ourselves and protecting those we love, between living in truth and living in safety. Sarah made the impossible choice to sacrifice her entire identity, everyone she loved, and everything she had built in order to stay alive. She chose existence over relationship, survival over connection. We can't know what she witnessed that March morning in 2013 that was so terrible. It required such a drastic response. We can't know if she made the right choice or if there were other options she didn't see. We can't know if she's happy in her new life or if she lives with constant regret and fear. We can't know if the threat she fled from is still active or if it's long past, but she's trapped in a new identity she can't escape without exposing herself. These unknowns make her story not just a mystery, but a tragedy. The case forces us to confront uncomfortable realities about our world. That there are apparently still situations in modern America where someone can witness something so dangerous that their only option is to vanish completely. That our systems for protecting witnesses and victims are not infallible, and that some people fall through the cracks. That the bonds of family and love, as strong as they are, can be severed by circumstances beyond anyone's control. That sometimes there are no good choices, only less terrible ones. Sarah's letter, arriving exactly 10 years after she vanished, gave her parents the truth she felt they deserved to know, that she was alive. But it couldn't give them back their daughter. It couldn't undo 10 years of grief and uncertainty. It couldn't restore what was lost. Today, somewhere in America or perhaps beyond, Sarah Chen lives under a different name, with a different history, a different life. Does she think about the people she left behind? Does she regret sending the letter? Or does she find some peace in knowing her parents at least have answers, even partial ones? Does she follow news about Portland, about her family? Or has she severed even that connection to avoid the pain of seeing what she's missing? Does she have new relationships, new friends who know nothing about her past? Or does she live in isolation, afraid that getting close to anyone might somehow expose her? These questions will probably never be answered, and perhaps that's how it has to be for Sarah's survival. But for those who loved her, the questions remain like an open wound that can never fully heal. Sarah Chen's case stands as one of the most unusual missing persons cases in recent history. She vanished without a trace, and 10 years later, a letter arrived that explained nothing and everything simultaneously. She's alive but gone, found but still lost, and the truth of what happened that morning in March 2013 remains locked away wherever Sarah is, a secret she felt was worth trading her entire life to keep. The case remains a testament to how much we still don't know about the people around us, how quickly a normal life can shatter, and how some mysteries persist not because we lack the technology or resources to solve them, but because the truth is being deliberately hidden by someone with good reason to keep it that way. 10 years after she vanished without a trace, we finally know Sarah Chen is alive, but in many ways the mystery is deeper than ever, and the questions more troubling than they were when she first disappeared into that March morning and never came back.